The charges that have been levied against me are meritless, and I will mount a vigorous defense in court to clear my name.
That was New York Congressman Chris Collins speaking just hours after he was indicted on federal charges of insider trading. Collins, who represents the 27th District in Western New York and was the first sitting congressman to endorse Donald Trump in 2016, is now facing multiple counts of securities fraud, including wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and making false statements. The congressman and his co-defendants have all pled not guilty on all charges. The fallout on Capitol Hill has been swift. House Speaker Paul Ryan responded by removing Collins from the powerful House Energy and Commerce Committee, pending the outcome of the case. Collins is up for re-election in November. So joining us now for the latest on this case and as part of our ongoing Corruption Watch coverage is criminal defense attorney and former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney, Isabel Kershner. Isabel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So first, I just want to start off with, can you sort of explain to us, I guess in layman's terms, what exactly the congressman was charged with?
Well, this is a pretty straightforward insider trading case. Essentially, the congressman owned shares in this company on which he sits on the board of directors. Apparently, at some point, he had his son's fiance, her father, and a number of other family members, I think, of her family, invest in the company. Mm-hmm. And that investment seems to have been tied to the trial, a drug trial for a drug that was going to treat multiple sclerosis. In mid-June, the congressman receives word, and ironically, he's on the front lawn of the White House at some White House picnic, mm-hmm. Stepping around the swamp. And it's literally, he's at the picnic, and I believe that there's actually photographs of him at the picnic, and he receives either an email or some communication indicating that the drug trial went bad, and unexpectedly bad, mm-hmm. which would indicate that once the company publicly announced that the shares of the stock of that company were going to fall. He immediately gets on the phone. I believe he initially received an email basically saying that drug trials were a disaster. Mm-hmm. He writes back, and there's an email that says, how can this be? That's impossible. But he gets on the phone with his son. And according to the indictment, he makes a number of phone calls to the son that are unanswered, which means the son didn't answer the phone, but then connects with the phone. And somebody who's a party to that conversation or who is in the room to that conversation and is able to gives a fairly verbatim rendition of that conversation in the indictment, somebody named who's a co-conspirator. And essentially the gist of the conversation is this private inside information that I have because I'm a director of the company and has been provided to me early than the public is going to get it, has now come out and things are going to go bad. So everybody who bought these shares, dump your stocks before this goes public.
And that's where it becomes illegal.
And that's where it becomes illegal. It's illegal, one, because it's insider information, and two, he's a director of the company, and he is specifically prohibited by the rules of the company and by the SEC rules of trading on insider information.
The fact that you have a sitting congressman, who is also sitting on the board of a privately held company, is that normal? Is that ethical?
Look, I think it's not abnormal. If he were, for lawyers and for judges, the standard is you avoid even the appearance of impropriety. Apparently, that's not the case in Washington. And so while it may be, it seems to me that the citizenry may look at this and say, this doesn't seem right, that you're sitting on the board of a company and may well be in a position to pass legislation that affects mm-hmm. either that industry as a whole or that company in particular. That in and of itself is not illegal.
Is there any indication, at least from your experience, how this defense might be shaping up? What can we expect to see?
Well, look, these kinds of cases are very sort of technically driven. And you'll have different kinds of evidence in this case. What's going to happen next is that the government is going to be required to turn over to the defense the evidence that they intend to present at trial. Not necessarily all of it, but a lot of it. And the defense counsel, all of whom appear to be pretty competent here, and experienced, will have an opportunity to evaluate that evidence and make a determination as to whether or not it's in their client's best interest to actually go to trial. All of this is very much complicated by the fact that people are related to each other. And so it appears from the indictment, at least, that his son's fiance may have provided information to the government that has made a little bit of a bridge here between point A and point B. And it is not unlikely that some of the other people identified in the indictment as co-conspirators 1 through 6 have also spoken with the government, either because they were put in the grand jury and compelled to speak, or they spoke and cut deals, or maybe somebody pleaded guilty. But clearly there was some sort of triage on the part of the U.S. Attorney's Office where a decision was made that they were going to charge certain people and not charge other people. What complicates it for the 3 people who have been charged is that they've also been charged with making false statements to the FBI. Those are what we call 1001 violations. And very often, as we've seen time and again, the crime is one thing, it's always the cover-up.
It is always the cover-up.
When you make false statements to the FBI and those false statements start to contradict either each other or what are going to be pretty objective records, if you're ever on the bubble in terms of whether or not you're going to be charged, once you make false statements to the FBI, they don't look kindly upon that, and that's often enough to tip you into the you're getting charged category.
All right. Well, that's definitely a lot of food for thought. Isabel, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program. As you said, it is usually the cover-up that leads us to these stories of corruption. So we'll be following this, and we'd love to have you back to give us your insight on what we see happening in court.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.